Well, I'm really happy to be the inaugural speaker here tonight. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm very much looking for feedback as to what I'm talking about, because you're all in the trenches, at least the people that I've talked to here this evening, and I'm looking forward to getting your feedback on my talk. I'm going to time it so I don't go over. Okay, so know thy human, we all know that is true. I'm going to be talking about metaphor elicitation, which is a pictorial, qualitative technique that is a projective technique when you're in the field, but then when you are done, the analysis and the synthesis of the data is performed a certain way. So even if you don't do the analysis and the synthesis, the idea of the projective technique is very helpful. I'm going to start with in the context of something that looks familiar to you, which is the hierarchy of user needs. And I think we're doing a really good job in the bottom part of this hierarchy. We're doing good with our objective research and the tasks we're trying to get people to do. We're really good on, does it function? Is it reliable? Is it usable? But as we get up on the hierarchy of needs, I don't know if we're doing as good a job, because this is more the experience. What's pleasurable? What's memorable, meaningful, or enjoyable? I don't think everybody wants their site to look like, what is that one, chimp, monkey, or monkey chimp? What is it? MailChimp. I mean, that is not the for every company. Yet that's what everybody's talking about. Oh, they've got a memorable, pleasurable experience. People leave smiling. All right, so I want to turn this thing on upside down. And the reason I do that is because in my next slide, I'm going to talk about going after that lower portion, the experience, the subjective, the qualitative. And let's see how we can do this. This is a metaphor, only appropriate for a talk entitled Metaphor Elicitation. This is an iceberg. So if you think of it as the top of the iceberg are the behavioral tasks, that we were talking about, the functionality, the usability. That's at the top of the iceberg. And that's what you can see and what you can hear when you're doing user research. But what about what's on the bottom of the iceberg? What about those things that are going to define whether your product is meaningful? Is it going to be pleasurable? Are the people going to be able to identify with what's going on there? And that's below the surface. And the reason I turned the hierarchy upside down is because it's my feeling that these things are the things you got to dig for, the things you're going to really have to work hard to find out about. Because, as I will explain later, people are not all that aware of what's motivating them, what's driving their behavior. So let's start off with an example. Berkeley Music. Has anybody heard of Berkeley Music? It's one of the premier, well, you're a musician, you should have heard of it. It's a premier, independent, contemporary music school in Boston. And they have an online offering. So they came to us and they asked, we want to really understand our students and our prospects. We want to be able to know what do they need out of our online music site. So they really wanted a strategy. So we had to uncover, of course they want it to function. Of course they want it to work. That's easy. So what we did, and this is where the pictures come in, is we showed them random pictures, all kinds of random pictures. And when you do this, what's really important is how you frame your question to your target audience. So remember, we've got the prospects, people that are coming to the site to see if they want to open their wallets and sign up and pay the high price. And we have the students. So I'm not going to go through every question that we had them do. We had them do 3 pictorial-based questions. But I will share with you one question for the students that we asked and one question for the prospects, because I'm going to show you the results and it helps frame those results. So the students, we said to them, think about music as a part of culture. Please select the one image that captures what makes music important. And for the prospects, we said, think about taking an online music course. I want to make sure I say it right, that's why I'm looking over here. Please select the one image that captures what you would be doing for yourself by taking an online music course. Okay? So they've got like 5,000 random pictures. They don't usually go through all 5,000. They usually, something latches, something catches their eye, and they associate with it. It resonates. Here's an example of what we heard from one of the performance students. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the point is, to this student, music is fire. It starts with passion. It ignites. It's a spark of hope. Okay, I mean, I don't know about you, but if I looked about a bunch of random pictures, I don't know if I'd pick fire for music. But if you're really into music, yeah, maybe you would. Claudia, would you pick fire?
Well, it depends on the day.
Okay. So let's see what we got. So you've talked to a number of people. Now you're on the back end, you're doing your analysis, okay? So you're looking for themes. And I'll get into the metaphors later, but I didn't want to overtask you with the learning. I wanted to show examples. But music transforms. Each of these pictures was selected by a person, and there was a quote that went along with it as to why they picked it. Now you have to be careful when you show them the pictures. You can't assume that they're seeing in the pictures what you're seeing. So the first thing you say to them is, oh, what's that picture about? Or what's that image? So they tell you, well, why does that relate to why music's important to you in the culture? Okay? So then they tell their story, which was like the fire story. Okay, here's one, was that it transforms. Music inspires people to live a richer life. That was another theme. And another theme was that it unites. It unites people through the beauty of the sound. So if we were to summarize these 3, we could say music is important because of what it does, not what it is. Okay? So now I'm going to just give you a little idea of kind of like how the synthesis and the analysis works. Well, that was the first stage. You categorize what you hear. The second stage is you want to come up with the one metaphor, maybe 2, that's really driving this category, if you would, of online music in this case. And again, I bring up the fire image because it's a force. Music's a force. It's a force for uniting, it's a force for transformation, and it's a force, what was the last one? Well, anyway. Inspiration. Okay, so here's what Berkeley Music came up with. I mean, this was kind of like the feeling. Now, those of you that do design, I've met some people here tonight that do design. If I were to give you those findings, that here's what we found out what music means to people, you know, would this be something you would come up with? Something like this? You can see the fire, right? You can see the energy, you can see the force, and the words, I have to take my glasses off. What are the words? Help create a laboratory for musical discovery and artistry. This one, I think, is more matching up with the summary that I provided, but it's the power of music. Okay, now, I don't think they would have got this from a usability study. They wouldn't have got this from a functionality study. But I tell you, when the kids, I call them kids because of my age, but when they got to the site, they know that the Berkeley music's for them. They're not consciously thinking that. I mean, I could interview people and show them a site and say, well, what do you think? And would I get that out of them? Would they say, oh, I really feel like Berkeley's my home because that's how I feel about music. It's a force. They don't know that. That's going on down deep. So how are we going to get down there, right? That's that kind of stuff we need to get to. And here's just another image using some of the findings about that it unites. And so they use a little imagery there. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to kind of the educational part, just to give you some more idea and food for thought as, to think about and why metaphor elicitation works in this case and other projective techniques. We can, I can come back and speak another time and after a year of successful meetups with speakers. So 95% of decision making is unconscious, according to the behavioral scientists. I see some people nodding, okay. Well, it's unconscious, it's automatic, it's associative, and it's metaphorical. Okay? So 5% then is effortful, meaningful activity. For those of you that haven't read, for some of you I'm sure have, Daniel Kahneman's book, published in 2011, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. This is kind of where it's come from. This is one of the best books. He's the father of behavioral economics. He's also a Nobel Prize winner. And by the way, if you have a question for him and you really sincerely ask it, he writes you back. Because I was working on one of the projects I'm going to show you. I was working on a project and I wanted to see what he thought because I wanted some input as to how to design my research. I wrote him an email and he wrote back faster than my neighbor down the street. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, that's an aside. So the point being is, people are available if you just ask. System 1, he talks about, is the unconscious. It's how we do things throughout the day, because if we had to think about everything, we'd never get anything done. And the 5% is the selectively employed conscious, rational decision making. Let's look at another example. Let's look at debt. We're called in to help with innovation with a financial service company, and the target was underbanked people. Now, our clients are all MBA types, finance types, yet they're wanting to deliver a product to the underbanked. Underbanked people have good jobs. They deliver the mail. They clean the toilets at the airport. They work as administrative assistants at the college. They have jobs, but they go out and get out these payday loans. They're over 700% interest. These people, a lot of them have multiple payday loans. So how are these MBAs going to really know what resonates with these people? They have no idea. So anyway, here's an example. It's a maze. So we ask the people, what is debt like for you? How is it living with debt? And these are some of the pictures we got. See how I'm doing on time? I'm doing good. Okay. This really blew me away. Paper clips, really? This woman said having debt is like clutter, like those hoarders you see on TV. I can't breathe with debt. It clutters my life and it's overwhelming. Now, this next one really blew me away. A factory? What did that have to do with debt? This woman worked at Target. She worked all day at Target. She worked overtime at Target. And here's what she had to say. Debt is like this factory. It looks like it's doing a lot of work, but it's not getting anywhere. That's me. I'm working and working and not getting ahead. Now, my question to you, if you straight out ask somebody, how they feel about debt, are you going to get this kind of depth, this kind of insight? This is, I get so excited about it. I'll let you watch somebody in a video here that was interviewed on this same project.
Trapped in the village, trying to get out to Nobody wants to be. Nobody wants to be pushed. Nobody wants to be. What's the word I want to use? Bogged down. To get out in front, that means I'm ahead, so I'm not cluttered into this position. I'm free. I'm ahead, so I can go forward and do whatever. Everybody wants to be ahead. Be free. Really, nobody wants to feel like that they just all come. Everybody wants to be free. If you're free, then you have no destiny. You just calm. You have nothing really to really bog you down, or you're free to just do whatever you feel like you want to do. With that, you're like, oh, I got to pay there. So.
Okay, so I don't know if you saw the image that she picked. She picked race cars. I mean, this woman must have been in her, late 60s or 70s, and she picked race cars. What does that have to do with debt? But the idea of being, so in the pack and being way behind. So when I talk about metaphor, thank you. When I talk about metaphor elicitation, I'm not talking about metaphor as your English teacher talked about metaphor. I'm using kind of a simple definition that not A equals B, X equals Y. One thing means something else. Here's some typical metaphors that we use in our lives. And according to James Gary, who's a Harvard professor, he wrote a book called The Secret Life of Metaphors. He said we use metaphors 5 to 6 times in a minute when we're in daily conversation. Now, I've never really tried to measure that, but it's something to think about. Again, his book is called The Secret Life of Metaphors and how it shapes the way we see the world, which is what I want to get into now so that you understand the analysis end of this process. By the way, I should mention that metaphor elicitation was a patented process. Odd, isn't it? A qualitative patented process by Professor Zaltman out of Harvard. The patent has expired. I was doing it before the patent expired, but anyway. And the reason it got a patent is because it's based on science. And I like that, that it's based on scientific findings. So when they started out with metaphors, it was in the linguistic department, actually over at UC Berkeley. And they found that it didn't matter what culture, that in terms of languages, whether they were sophisticated cultures or unsophisticated cultures, didn't matter what the language, that there were certain metaphors that were in every culture. Okay, so why are metaphors important? And then anyway, so then I should get into this. Okay, so that's metaphors, and then it moved in recent years, it's moved into this area of embodied cognition. They found out more. First they identified the metaphors were operating, and now they know the reason why. And that is because of a counterintuitive process where the body influences the mind. So cognition is influenced and determined by our experiences in the physical world. So you can look up embodied cognition if you really want to get into it. Okay, so it basically, it lays down the circuits. Okay, I'm looking to see if you're nodding, you're following along. Okay, here are some of the embodied cognitions. I don't want to take too much time. We're down to 19 minutes here. Connection, balance, and orientation. I'll talk about those 3. But this would be like if you're doing your analysis, this would be your crib sheet. Okay? So, connection. You learn connection as a baby. It involves feelings. It involves belonging and acceptance. And it's based on our social interactions. But it extends to relationships with places, brands, objects, etc. So for instance, when you're a baby, you learn connection means love. You learn warmth is associated with connection. So what are some metaphors that would fall in this category? She gave me a cold shoulder. Let me see. You might say something is, whoops. You could say she's a warm person. Okay, how about this one? Balance. You're a baby. You're learning to walk. You're learning balance. This becomes a core underlying metaphor on how you're going to view the world. There's 4 types of balance. There's social balance, there's moral balance, there's physical balance, and there's emotional balance. Maybe you said to your friend at work today, you know, I'm feeling a little off, right? Or I'm on an emotional roller coaster. Or you'll say something like, I want to live a balanced life. What do you guys, you get it? Okay. So, or you might say, I'm feeling grounded. Okay. How about the last one I'm going to talk about here is orientation. So, up is more, down is less. Up is happy, down is sad. You think it's smiling up, frowning's down. Healthy is up, sickness is down. You might say, I fell into a depression. It's over my head. You know, it's out of my peripheral view. I don't even see it. Okay, so those are 3 of the 3 different, I'm going to skip over. I have another example of a study we did with genes, but I'm going to wrap it up just to summarize it here so we have time to hear from the other speakers. Just to where we started off, you know, the idea of the hierarchy. We turned it upside down, and then we dug deep to try to find out what's going on with these people. So if there's time for questions, we will take them. And where did I lose you? I'd love to know.
How do you decide which pictures to show people for the metaphor?
You show them lots, and you show them random. So if you were to do it digitally, you would just have it, you know, randomly come up digitally. If you were doing it physically, you would, you know, shuffle the cards and have a picture on every card. The whole idea is you just want to have random. And it's, you know, if you remember Psychology 101, the ink blot test, what do you see in the ink blot? So this is where it comes from. So people project into the picture. As much variety as you can find is the best.
What other sorts of techniques do you like to use when you're doing this kind of research?
Oh, well, that would be another speaker engagement. I have a lot.
What about like your other 2 favorites?
Well, I don't know if I can think on my feet. I don't want to waste time having my brain go into operation here. I'll get back to you tonight. You know, find me later when I'm not on the spot. I'll come up with some.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You know, it sounds like the core for using this method is really what they say and then categorizing what they say. Is that kind of, if you were giving advice for how to actually implement this, is that really the key?
Okay, and just remember to ask them what they see in the picture and why that relates to the question you ask. I would encourage you that the people that are researchers in here and you really want to use this, you really have to frame your question to meet your objective. And I'm sure you're all capable of doing that if you're a researcher, but think hard about your question, be creative about your question, and don't help them, as you probably know. It's always great talking to researchers because they get it. Yeah. Yeah, true.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I'm curious of what you think of this method versus sort of the common marketing mood board method, where you're taking either a group of people or I've been in companies before that have just let the entire company, because it was an internal project, take and sort of create collaborative collages. I'm wondering thoughts are on the different benefits. of
Mhm.
different schools.
I have pretty strong opinion of when I want to get deep, I want one person at a time. And so that's one thing. The other thing is the mood boards could be created off of this data, right? Because the data is based on good field work, I'd like to think. And then, you know, I hope that the people in your company that are making the mood boards are the people they're designing for. Yeah. Because you have to really, you want to resonate. You want people to come to your site and not know why, but they like it, you know? So I'm very excited. I really am looking forward to hearing what you guys say, because I feel like you are really dealing with this every day, and whether you think that the online world is ready to start differentiating on emotional qualities. Certainly the brands in the marketplace are differentiating themselves on emotional qualities, because we all know at the end of the day, people don't make rational choices, they make emotional choices. And people don't want to think of themselves as not rational. So it's a difficult thing, because we are people too. Any other questions? Yes? Okay, well, now, each segment you want to be able to analyze, right? So I'll tell you what I like. I like to shoot for 15, because I'm always selling research, so I'm selling into a client basically. So I say 15. The reason I do that, it's kind of an insurance policy for me, because maybe 3 of those 15 are going to be duds, you know, basically. And I want 12, yeah, within one story, at least 12. And you can do this quantitatively too. You could do this online with a whole bunch of images, as long as you can rotate them. So you could have a larger sample size. You do the same kind of qualitative analysis on the back end of a quantitative sample, but you've got to go through it all. It's very powerful.
So you mentioned that it's important to have the pictures show up randomly, but do you need to have the same set of pictures presented to each person, or is it as long as you have a wide variety of pictures that each person is seeing?
So the question is, do they need to be the same pictures for everybody? And no, wide variety. Because again, it's the ink blot. It's what people project into it. I will say that there's a company called Forbes Research, charges over $200,000 for a study with like one question. I asked him, I said, well, I saw him at a conference, how much are these studies? And what they've done is they've taken a set of pictures, they've quantitatively, statistically defined what each picture represents. So they, have the whole sample, so they know that picture means this. So then they provide their clients with an analysis. Oh, they picked that picture, that. So this is another way of doing that for not $200,000. You do it yourself, which is exciting.
One more question.
How about you in the back there? No? I think that I'm around afterwards if you want to chat. Thank you for being such an attentive audience. I appreciate it.